This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us this Tuesday, March 2nd. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo facing allegations of sexual harassment. This comes as the state attorney general has already started investigations into the previous claims. Another step forward for the Middle East peace deals known as the Abraham Accords, as the ambassador from the United Arab Emirates comes to Israel, and Israel may be working with Islamic countries on a defense alliance. We're going to talk to our Middle East Bureau Chief, Chris Mitchell, from Jerusalem. From science to fiction to science fact, how super soldiers are becoming a reality, part man and part machine. And Super Bowl winning coach Tony Dungy talks to CBN News about how families can help deal with racism in America. All those stories and more are ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We begin this half hour in New York, where Governor Andrew Cuomo is under more fire after a third woman has now come forward with her claims of sexual harassment. After the first two women, both former members of the Cuomo administration, told their stories, Cuomo released a statement as an attempt at an apology, but critics called it tone deaf. Now Cuomo is facing an investigation by the New York Attorney General and increasing pressure over his handling of the COVID crisis in the state's nursing homes. Tara Merchner has our report.
The state attorney general's office is now leading what's being called a rigorous investigation. This as calls for Governor Cuomo's resignation grow louder and he maintains his innocence.
I know that there is a pattern of abusive and manipulative behavior from him. I do think that it is time for our governor to resign.
Calls from inside his own party that Cuomo should step down are intensifying after several women came out with sexual harassment claims, among them two former staffers.
She alleges that the governor asked her direct questions about her sex life, whether or not she was monogamous in her relationships, whether or not she had ever slept with an older man.
Charlotte Bennett telling the New York Times it happened last spring, and that while the governor never got physical, he told her he was open to relationships with women in their 20s. She says, "I understood that the governor wanted to sleep with me and felt horribly uncomfortable and scared." Cuomo denies the allegations and in a statement Sunday says, "Some of the things I have said have been misinterpreted as an unwanted flirtation. To the extent anyone felt that way, I am truly sorry about that."
That's not an apology. He seemed to be saying, "Oh, I was just kidding around." You know, sexual harassment is not funny.
Cuomo also denies earlier sexual harassment claims by former aide Lindsey Boylan.
It's just not true.
Facing backlash over plans to name his own investigator, Cuomo has referred the case to the New York State Attorney General.
We have to keep politics out of this, get what actually did or did not happen.
The White House also now calling for an independent review.
And that's certainly something he supports and we believe should move forward as quickly as possible.
The new allegations come as the FBI investigates whether Governor Cuomo covered up the coronavirus death toll in New York's nursing homes.
The truth is everybody did everything they could.
The scrutiny growing by the day and now reaching a boiling point. Fox News contributor Janice Dean telling CBN News the death of her in-laws in a New York nursing home led her to speak out against the governor.
I was learning this after my in-laws died. We had no idea that there was this executive order in place, and I wasn't seeing the news stories out there.
There are also reports that bipartisan calls to strip Cuomo of emergency pandemic powers are gaining steam. Tara Merchner, CBN News.
Turning now to the Middle East, another step forward for Israel's reactions with its Islamic neighbors under the Abraham Accords peace deals negotiated under the Trump administration. The first ever ambassador from the United Arab Emirates to the Jewish state arrived in Israel Monday. The Emirati national anthem played to welcome the new ambassador. Mohammed Alcaja presented his credentials to Israeli President Reuven Rivlin, who thanked God in Hebrew and Arabic.
You should know that not only am I moved, the entire Israeli people are excited and welcome you with joy.
Earlier, Alcaja met with Israel's foreign minister and said they were already talking about how to get to know each other better.
We are very much looking forward to working together. My mission here is to
foster and develop this relationship.
The Abraham Accord is a paradigm shift in the region.
Israel has already sent ambassadors to Abu Dhabi and Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Joining us now with more on this is Chris Mitchell. So, Chris, tell us why this visit, including the Israeli president accepting the UAE ambassador's credentials, is so significant.
Well, Ephraim, it's historic, it's unprecedented, and it's the unfolding of the Abraham Accords. And Israel really put out the red carpet. I've been many times up to the president's residence when they had ambassadors. Now, they went really over the top to welcome the UAE ambassador. It shows a very warm relationship between these countries. You know, also for decades, Ephraim, the Israeli-Palestinian issue, many felt had to come first before there could be any peace between Israel and its Arab nations, and now this proves that wasn't true at all. It means more tourism and trade for both countries. And Ephraim, don't forget the Iranian threat. That's overarching here, the geopolitics in the region. The Abraham Accords mean peace, but they also mean war, and it means these are natural allies given the current Middle East geopolitical conditions.
Chris, there's also a report the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and other Gulf states are looking at a defense alliance. What's led to that, and what impact could this have on the region?
Well, Ephraim, it's another unprecedented development here in the region. What led to this was a U.S. desire to renew the Iranian deal, and that is alarming to Israel and the Gulf states because they both see Iran as an existential threat, and they really see themselves as the only reliable allies in the Middle East. And so this represents that huge geopolitical shift in the region. You know, part of this became because of an idea that was broached by Ron Lauder. He's a major Jewish leader. He called this a NATO of the Middle East. And the signs, first of all, Israel didn't object to the U.S. sale of F-35s. That was back in the Trump administration. And also there's been reported a meeting between Benjamin Netanyahu and Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia. And then just lately, the foreign minister of Israel, Ashkenazi, who you just saw in that report, he spoke with his Oman counterpart. So all this is happening with the idea that these Gulf nations and Israel see Iran as an existential threat, and they want to get together about that.
Chris, let's talk about a very important domestic issue there in Israel. The Supreme Court made an historic ruling on non-Orthodox conversions inside Israel. What does this mean, and what are the consequences?
Well, Ephraim, it's been a ruling 15 years in the making. The first appeal to the Supreme Court was about 15 years ago. And what this ruling says, it allows non-Jews that are living in Israel, if they convert to Judaism under Reform or conservative conversions, they can become citizens. Now, here in Israel, the Orthodox and the ultra-Orthodox rabbis don't recognize these conversions. The reason, there's big theological difference between the Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, as well as the Reform and the conservative. For example, for some of the Reformed and conservative, they don't believe in divine revelation. This was told to me by a well-known Orthodox leader this morning. For example, you know, when God gave the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai, they may not believe that. So they have a very liberal interpretation of the Bible. I mean, this may go to an extreme, but some may say, well, this is what I feel it means to be a Jew. But one Orthodox rabbi told me on a personal level, these things are not as important. We're here for everybody. In other words, a Reformed Jew is going to look at an Orthodox Jew in sometimes the same way on a personal basis. But these are huge political ramifications. For example, later on this month, there's going to be a national election. Some of the Orthodox parties are saying they're not going to join any party that won't pass a law to nullify this decision. So major implications here. It's a very hot button issue here in Israel, Ephraim.
And we'll continue following. Chris Mitchell, Middle East Bureau Chief, thank you so much. Back here at home, an update on a story we brought you yesterday. The organization that preserves author Dr. Seuss's legacy says it will stop publishing 6 titles because of racist imagery. It comes after one of the largest school districts in Virginia removed his books from its Read Across America Day celebration. That day is today, March 2nd, which is also Dr. Seuss's birthday. President Biden has also reportedly taken Seuss's books out of his proclamation for a Read Across America Day, although Fox News reports both Presidents Obama and Trump included the famous author. The Senate is scheduled to take up the Equality Act after the House took it up late last week. The act is designed to expand civil rights protections for LGBTQ people, but critics say if it is passed, it would be devastating for religious freedoms and for babies in the womb. Allison Celafante with Live Action told CBN's The Prayer Link this piece of legislation is also a clear attack on womanhood.
This is an incredibly outlandish, dangerous piece of legislation. I'm shocked, guys, that we have, we're celebrating the first female vice president of Kamala Harris. And by March, we're already talking about erasing what it means to be female. And she's in support of the Equality Act. That's just how completely hypocritical, illogical what's happening right now in Washington, D.C. is. So I hope that we can find common ground, even with people who maybe aren't pro-life or don't consider themselves conservative, to say, look, if we're going to keep honoring women who advance, we have to ensure that we can honor what it means to be women advancing in our arenas.
You can watch The Prayer Link this evening at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time on the CBN News Channel. Bethany Christian Services announced Monday it will begin placing children in LGBTQ families nationwide. Bethany is one of the country's largest adoption and foster care agencies. It started offering services to gay couples in 2019 after a legal settlement. The international agency will begin training all its employees, including those at locations that have not worked with gay couples. In a statement to CBN News, Bethany said, "Faith in Jesus is at the core of our mission, but we are not claiming a position on the various doctrinal issues about which Christians of mutual good faith may disagree. We acknowledge that discussions about doctrine are important, but our sole job is to determine if a family can provide a safe, stable environment for children." You can find out more about this story at cbnnews.com. We also want to remind you of our new free service from CBN News, a CBN News daily email called Quick Start. It gives you the stories you need each morning at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Get important national, international, and faith-based news delivered right to your email inbox. You can subscribe at quickstart.news. Coming up, it sounds like something out of science fiction, but it's becoming science fact. Super soldiers, and they could literally be part man and part machine. We're going to tell you which countries are in the lead to create these soldiers of the future when we come back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Welcome back. As we told you before the break, super soldiers are moving from the realm of science fiction to the real world. Now, the international race is on to be the first nation to create these soldiers of the future, part man and part machine. But some have asked, even if it's something America has the technology to do, is it right to do it? Dale Hurd has the story.
This is the U.S. Army's concept of the soldier of the future. This video makes it look like it's just a better equipped soldier. But notice the words neural engineering. That can mean a brain implant that connects a human to computers. The defense agency DARPA has been working on an advanced implant that would essentially put the human brain online. There could also be eye and ear implants and more circuitry under the skin to make the ultimate fighting machine. Americans are going to have to decide whether this is ethical, because some in our military clearly want it. The super soldiers of the future could simply have enhanced abilities, or they could be part man and part machine, what are known as cyborgs. China is already developing biologically enhanced super soldiers, using what former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe called unethical medical experiments.
This is a big effort on the part of the Chinese government, and it is really horrifying.
China expert Gordon Chang says it's part of a Chinese government plan to create a master race through genetic editing.
They're trying to create a race which is far more intelligent than the rest of humanity. And with super soldiers, they'd be stronger, less susceptible to pain, just better soldiers. This is eugenics. This is creepy. There are no ethical standards. There are no laws.
Now the French military has been given the go-ahead to also create so-called augmented soldiers. The super soldiers of the future will run fast, need little sleep, and little to eat or drink. And they'll be able to fight much longer than ordinary humans. But should we do it? George Lucas, who has taught military ethics to America's naval officers, says ethical concerns lag behind this new technology.
It always does, and the only question is how far.
And Lucas is concerned that future military recruits could be pressured to accept computer parts into their bodies. He believes they should be allowed to refuse them.
The further into these more exotic technologies we go, and the more the risks are not known, the more we must at least rely on volunteerism, if not as much informed consent as is possible.
But the challenge for the United States is, even if we put ethical limits on the super soldier of the future, it's likely some of our adversaries will not. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Still ahead, he was the first African-American coach to win the Super Bowl, and now Tony Dungy and a fellow coach have gotten together to talk about how families can come together towards addressing racism. We're going to bring you the story in our interview with Coach Dungy right after this.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN NewsWatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man. Come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
He was the first African-American to win the Super Bowl, and now Tony Dungy and a fellow coach are writing about how families can help deal with racism in America. Heather Sells recently spoke with Dungy. Here's a look at her interview.
Super Bowl coach and sports analyst Tony Dungy has a vision for helping families to talk about race. He has written a guide for parents along with Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback coach Clyde Christensen, and he joins us now to talk about it. Coach Dungy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Heather.
I want to ask you, you call this guide an on-ramp for families to start talking about race. What motivated you to write this?
Well, actually, Clyde and I had worked together for over 15 years, and we have kids the same age, and we have a lot of conversations together as families. And so we were talking, and since the George Floyd incident, I've had so many white friends actually say, hey, what can I do? How can I talk to my kids? I don't live around Black families. I don't live around minorities. And, you know, you hear those conversations and you say, you really do have to start with your family. How do you open that up? So we kind of thought about just conversation starters, what we could say to our kids, what we do say to our kids, and try to help people just begin those conversations when they maybe haven't had them before.
Right, and it's a simple thing, if you will, on the face of it, but from your standpoint, what kind of difference can it make if families start talking about race more intentionally?
I think that's where the solution has to come. I'm a big believer that it's going to come through Christ and the church, but how do we develop it with our own families? And I can remember growing up in the 60s and talking to my dad, hey, what's going on? What's happening with these riots? Why did they shoot Dr. King? And what happened? And my dad having to tell me, well, here's what's going on in the world, but here's how we're going to handle it as a family. We're going to love people. We're going to treat people individually. And you know, he had those conversations with us. Clyde's dad was the same way. So that's what we kind of came up with. How can we as fathers, as mothers, start these conversations and talk to our kids about how we should treat other people?
All right, and I want to ask you a little bit more about those conversations with your dad that you remember. How were his insights helpful to you in understanding a lot of racial turmoil at the time?
Well, he had to explain some things to me. I remember watching things going on and saying, Dad, what is this? Why is this happening? And well, hey, there's people that may not like you because of the way you look or the way you talk or where you live. But for us, we aren't going to do it that way. In our household, in our family, we're going to treat everybody well. We're going to have friends because we're friendly. And that's the way we're going to do it. And so often we don't have those conversations with our kids. They don't know where we stand, and they don't know what's going on in the rest of the world. Hey, I live in kind of an isolated neighborhood, and so maybe I don't have any problems. I don't see these racial injustices. I don't have friends who are different from me. But where can we start, and how does that look? And I think that has to start at home.
And is this something that you and your wife practice with your children? And I know you still have kids in the home. Are still following today?
We do. We have 7 kids still living at home with us, and we do talk about those things quite a bit. And we feel like it's important. They need to know what's going on, but more than that, they need to know from us how we feel, and they need to know what the Bible says about treating people well and about being friendly.
All right. Well, Coach Tony Dungy, I know this resource can be found on your website, All Pro Dad, and thank you so much for what you're doing in this area and coming on.
Appreciate it, Heather. Thank you.
Coming up, a Florida couple got an unwelcome visitor in their garage, an alligator. We're going to tell you what happened when we come back. Stay with us.
Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Watch On the Home Front today at 2:30.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
Your news channel, your shows, the stories you care about. Anytime you want, anywhere you want. Download the CBN News app today.
A woman in Fort Myers, Florida got a real shock Sunday night. Tori Heathcote opened her garage door and came face to face with a 7-foot alligator.
My husband said there's a gator in the garage. I thought he was kidding. And when I opened the door and it was literally on the other side of the door. Yeah.
Heathcote said she had seen a gator in a lake near their home earlier that evening. Her garage door had been open only about 10 minutes before the gator was found inside. She called 911 and wildlife officers came to take that gator away. Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. I pray this message will inspire you and you will post, tag, tweet, and share it with those in your circle. Focus on you until the focus is on you. In other words, pray and prepare in the dark, quiet moments of isolation. And you'll be ready when the light and eyes of others are fixed on you and looking to you to do what is right and what is good. With that word, make today a terrific Tuesday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. Email us, newswatch@cbn.com. Reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you back here tomorrow.